We're still on the run, and listen, let's get into it. I'm ready to hear what thus says the Lord concerning our life. Listen, let's do it. At the beginning of a tape, the director on set gives the cue, in which he says, lights, camera, action.
Yes, sir.
At the beginning of a tape, the director says a cue in which he says, lights, camera, and the operative word is action. Somebody say action.
Action.
The word action is the process. It's best understood as the process of doing something.
Yeah.
The word action suggests motion and movement. It's when faith meets force.
Yeah.
When the director says action, watch this, the actors on set begin to perform. They begin to perform things that they have been prepared to produce.
Yeah.
I said when the director says action, the actors on set begin to perform the thing in which they have prepared to produce. All the things that they have rehearsed begins to manifest itself into reality.
Yeah.
Things come into action when the director says action.
Yeah.
It's at the command of action, watch this, that things begin to work. At the command of action, things begin to line up. At the command of action, things begin to fall properly into place. Somebody help me shout action.
Action.
The word action, the root of the word action is found in the word act. The word act in the theater terminology, dog, watch this. In theater terminology suggests a section of a play in which the scene shifts.
Yeah.
If you notice that a moment ago, we have not been in the sanctuary, we have been on the run week after week after week. We've been on the move, we've been in motion. In other words, the scene has shifted.
Yes, sir.
That's critical. Why? Because when the scene shifts, watch this, that means that you are in another level of production.
Yeah.
I said when the scene shifts, that means you are in another level of production. You can't get to Act 2 unless you successfully completed Act 1. Then I pause parenthetically to prophetically proclaim that God has been behind the scenes, moving things in motion, putting things in motion. Although you didn't see God, He was in the background, moving things around. He has been shifting some stuff. In other words, God is getting ready to watch this. He's getting ready to act on your behalf. Speaking of Acts, the text says in Acts chapter 2, verse 46 says, so continuing daily on one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, they ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God and having favor with people. Here's the thing. And the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. Let me read that text one more again. So continuing daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from house to house, they ate food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God and having favor with the people. And the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. In other words, according to Acts chapter 2, because they were on one accord, the Lord acted on their behalf by adding to them once they took action. You missed what I said. According to Acts 2, because they were on one accord, the Lord acted on their behalf by adding to them once they took action. Do me a favor, but look at somebody real close and tell them it's go time. Look at somebody else and say it's go time. Can I suggest to you that after all of that persecution, after all of the pain, after all of the problems, even after the preparation, and God was only setting you up to produce on another level. I said after all of that persecution, after all of your pain, after all of your problems, even after your preparation, God has only set you up in this place in order that you might produce on another level. What if I told you that you were closer than you were? That you were in a better position than you realize? What if I told you that God had you right where He intended you to be, so He can use this global pandemic in order to position you on another level to produce? What if I told you that your situation was not a setback? God was just shifting the things in your life. He's putting you in motion. He's moving you into place. In other words, light, camera, action. Look at somebody and say, it's no time.
It's no time.
Do me a favor, take about 10 seconds and just go in on the board. Around that The text says, so continuing daily with one accord. So continuing daily with one accord. So here it is in verse 46 that Luke provides us with a critical detail that I believe makes the difference between obtaining and sustaining. Luke gives us a critical detail that I believe helps us to understand the difference between obtaining and sustaining. To obtain means to get.
Yeah.
To obtain means to acquire or to secure a thing. To sustain, watch this, not only means to get it, but it means to hold on to it.
Yes, sir.
To sustain means to maintain or to continue in what you have.
Yeah.
Listen, according to the text, Luke lets us know that what they learned led them in how they lived.
Wow.
That what they learned led them in how they live. Hear me, watch this. The difference between church folk and Christ followers, the difference between church folk and Christ followers is church folk shout on revelation. But Christ followers live the application. Church folk shout on application, but Christ followers live the application. The text says, so they continue daily. Can I get ghetto for just a moment? Look at somebody real quick and say, every day I'm worshiping. Look at somebody real quick, just tell them every day I'm worshiping. Listen, here's the thing. Church folk believe that worship is reserved only for the worship space. Church folk believe that worship is reserved only for the worship space, but Christ followers understand, watch this, that your worship should travel.
Yes.
That worship should travel. In other words, worship is more than just a moment. Worship is meant to become a lifestyle. The text says, so they continue daily. So somebody put this in your notes and in the comments. Continue daily. Continue daily. This means this was not just something that they learned. This is something that they lived.
Yeah.
This wasn't just something that they learned. This was something, Darwin, that became a lifestyle. Quincy, it became a way of life. It was their lifestyle.
Yes, sir. Yes,
The difference between church folk and Christ followers is, watch it, what we do in church don't always translate to what we do at home. Some of us can give him a mighty shout at church, but we quiet the church mouth at home. Sometimes our worship does not travel. For them, worship became a lifestyle. They didn't have to be in church to shout. They didn't have to be in the temple to give God praise. Worship for them became a lifestyle. Their life became dedicated to God. Are you dedicated to God, or are you just dedicated to your religion? Are you dedicated to God, or are you just dedicated to the man who hung on the cross for you? Where does a real loyalty lie? The text says, so they continue daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from house to house. I said it before, I'll say it again. Worship is not reserved for the worship service. Worship is meant to travel.
Yeah.
Somebody say travel.
Travel.
Worship is meant to travel. According to the text, it took place in the temple, yet it traveled from house to house.
Yes, sir.
It took place in the temple, yet it traveled from house to house. What happened in worship, this is critical, what happened in worship didn't just stay in worship.
Yes.
What happened in church didn't just stay at church. They took the worship wherever they went. I wonder if the inconsistencies of our reality are rooted in the fact that we are really situational worshipers. I wonder if the inconsistencies of our reality is really because we are situational worshipers. We are situational work. We'll worship if we're in the right situation. We'll worship, watch this, if we're seated in the right setting. We'll worship if the right song has been selected. If we're enjoying a good season in our life, we'll worship. Isn't it amazing that we can worship in the sanctuary, but our worship does not travel to our own personal settings? Isn't it strange that we can worship God in the sanctuary packed with people, but we struggle to worship God in the secret place? can worship him in the sanctuary, but we struggle to worship him in our own secret places. I've come to discover that if our situation is right,
Yes, sir.
we'll worship. That's what it means to be a situational worshiper.
Yeah.
But I believe that's why God had a particular liking to David.
Well,
I believe that's the reason why God favored David, because David, watch this, David did not care where David danced.
Come on.
David did not care where David worshiped. David was a worshiper. It didn't matter if David was on the streets of David or he was in the sanctuary. He didn't care if he was in the field, in the valley, or in the cave. David was a worshiper. You missed what I just said. Maybe that's why God favored David the way he favored David, because David did not care where he shouted. David was not a situational worshiper. David was just a flat foot. I wish I had one worshiper who could care less about where you are. Who didn't care if you were in your living room or your bedroom. You didn't care if you was in your front room or your bedroom. I wish I had one worshiper who could be like David and say, I don't care if I get on fine minutes. I don't care if you look at me red and royalty. I don't care how you see me. All I know is God has been too good to me to sit down and do nothing. David said, God has been too good to me to act like I'm Deuce and Diddy to praise God. God has been too good to me to keep my mouth quiet. God has been. Is there anybody here that owes God a praise? He's been keeping you. He's been blessing you. He's been sustaining you. God has kept you when you've been kicked up. Is there anybody here that owes God a undignified praise? Too many of us are situational worshipers.
yes, oh God.
If your hair and makeup is right, then you got a cute praise. But I wish I had one person who didn't care if you got a sew in or you ain't got nothing. You just came to give God praise. The only reason you showed up was to shout. You missed what I said. The only reason you showed up was to shout. The only reason you came was to lift your hand. You praise God in the congregation of you. You can praise God in the house. You can praise God in the kitchen. You can praise God in a bad situation. You can praise God with a bad hand. Is there anybody here? Listen, I don't care what my situation is. I came to shout.
So worthy, God.
I never want to be considered a situational worshiper. That means my setting has to be pretty in order for me to pray. You missed what I said. I don't ever want to be seen as a situational worshiper. My setting has to be pretty for me to give God. I don't care if He shifts the things in my life. I came to give God glory. I don't care like that or ain't that. I came to give God praise now. But the text says, so they continued daily in one accord
Yes, oh God.
in the temple and breaking bread from house to house. They ate food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. Listen, not only did they obtain the way, but they sustained the way.
Yeah.
They didn't just come into the faith, they became faithful. They didn't just come into the faith. That's what some of us messed up. We cool because we just came to faith. We came to church. We came into the church. Listen, they didn't just come into faith. They became faithful. And as a result of their faithfulness, God gave them favor. You missed it. As a result of their faithfulness, God bestowed them with favor. As a result of their faithfulness, God blessed them with favor. Because they were faithful of a few things, God granted them favor with many things. That's the equation to get what you want from God. Because they were faithful, I'm trying to help somebody. Because they were faithful with a little bit, God blessed them with a lot of it. Because they were faithful with the 10%, God did something mighty with the 90. because they were faithful with a raggedy car. God blessed them with a new car. Because they were faithful with their last $2. God blessed them with a multitude of dollars. Because they were faithful with a little bit. God said, I'm going to give you a lot of it. They did not just come into the faith, they became faithful. They didn't just come into the faith, they became faithful. You've heard it said that favor is not fair, but this is what I've discovered. Not only is favor not fair, this is what I've learned. Favor is not free.
That's it.
Not only is favor not fair, favor is not free. Favor costs.
Come on.
You don't just by chance stumble upon favor. Favor costs. Favor costs friendships. Favor costs relationships. Favor does not just come for free. Favor costs you something. We look at folk with favor and we want what they got, but are you willing to pay the price that they paid? You look at the gifts of other folk, you look at their anointing and say, I want what they want, but are you willing to go through what they went through to get it? Favor it's not just free, favor costs.
Yes, God. Speak, Holy Ghost. Speak.
So I wouldn't be a man of God if I didn't tell you the means to purchase favor. So what are the means to purchase favor? There are two things I can give you real quick. Number one, watch this. To purchase favor, the means of purchasing favor, here's the first one. The means to purchase favor is in your sacrifice. Let's look at the verse. Verse 44 and verse 45. It says, they sold their possessions and divided them amongst those who had need. Look at the text. They sold their possessions and divided them among those who had need. They sold. Somebody say sold. S-O-L-D. It doesn't just stop there. Yes, they sacrificed by selling. Not only did they had they sold their stuff, watch this, they sold their stuff. Y'all want me to stop preaching right there. They didn't just sold their stuff, they didn't sell or sold their things, they sold. S-O-W-E-D. Some of us ain't sold since the pandemic hit. Some of us don't believe in sowing seeds. Some of us don't believe in putting a seed in the ground. Not only did they sell their stuff or they sold their stuff, they sold their stuff. They sacrificed. In other words, they were willing, watch this, they were willing to let go and to give up. The reason why some of us can't obtain favor is because we're still holding on to the little bit that we have. I'm not just talking about your money, I'm talking about your honey. Some of us in a relationship that's keeping us from favor. Some of us have friendship that's keeping us from favor. Some of us, watch this, know that we have some blessing blockers in our life and we still won't remove them. We're still not willing to let them go. We're still not willing to release them. God says you got to move some of those things out of your life because if you really want favor, you got to sacrifice for it. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to let go of? What are you willing to give up? It's not